Spectrovision Radio.
Welcome to Somewhere in the Skies. I am your host, Ryan Sprague, and today we are in Nova Scotia in studio with the one and only Paul Kimball.
Why do you keep asking me on the show? I don't know.
I don't know
I'm in trouble,
either,
man.
Paul. This is, I'm going to regret this.
While our government's official position is not to speculate on this subject, we can choose to let our minds explore other possibilities, to use our imaginations. For if we consider that astroscientists agree on one point, that the possibility of life elsewhere is not only quite probable, some feel it is there without a doubt. Let us suppose then that these objects are real space vehicles, extraterrestrial in origin, and not an illusion of the mind.
This is Somewhere in the Skies with Ryan Sprague.
Welcome to Somewhere in the Skies. I am your host, Ryan Sprague. And to my left, yes, my left, your right, the one and only Paul Kimball. So you guys know what that means. I am back in Nova Scotia hunting ghosts. I have accosted the ghosts here in Nova Scotia.
Freeloading at my house.
I am.
American freeloaders.
We are in the wonderful Kimball Wood Down.
Oh, it's the sound that the house makes. Oh.
It does. I think
It does. Late at night, it sings to you.
yeah. What is that? Is that you?
You know what's singing right now? Your mortgage renews in a month at a higher rate, thanks Donald Trump.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, my 1.99 interest rate not happening. Thank you, Trumpelstiltskin.
So we're 2 minutes in, and you've already alienated
Half your audience?
That's new for you. 2 minutes.
I know, usually only takes one.
Yeah.
Just my seeing me alienates them. So I think our hats are on as straight as they're going to be. I've got this up to hide my 59-year-old double chin, and plus the air conditioning's on in here. So
yeah, feels pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
We are here, and we are going to be talking all about.
I hope so.
Yeah, right. I'm out of it.
I don't know where you are, man.
Do you want to host this? I don't know what's happening.
Hi, welcome to the Joe Sirocco Show, starring Paul Kimball with Ryan Sprague. No Joe Sirocco to be found. That's an inside joke, folks.
It is that you and I will get, and not a single listener of the show. But
unless Joe's listening, yeah. Welcome to the Somewhere in the Skies with Ryan Sprague.
Good job, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Can you believe Somewhere in the Skies is almost 10 years old?
I can believe that. Yes, I can.
Really?
I can actually, because it was 2017 or whatever. We brought you up here for the Esotericon.
Yes, that's
or
right.
actually, I think you came up before for the Paranormicon.
Yes,
Paracon. So that was about 9 or 10 years ago, and we only brought you up because we thought you could move tickets because you were a big media star.
Did it happen?
It didn't happen. No. Should have asked him how many of his books are in the remainder bins in Syracuse. Signed, folks. You can get signed copies.
I even signed them. They're still not moving. Yeah. It's the economy's tough. Let's go with that.
The economy is tough.
I'm gonna blame
I
you.
give my books away, and I still can't get people to read them. So you people I've recently given it to, you know who I'm talking to. You haven't read my book. Well, you're going in the next one then.
Yes.
That's how I know when people read my book. Just put their names in it, and
if they don't say anything.
Yeah. Although I take the time to index, which means they don't actually have to read it. They can just go see if they're in the index. So.
Wow. You're one step ahead of me. I wouldn't index to save my life. That's way too much work. Anyways.
We could get ChatGPT to do it.
Yes.
Chatty will do everything.
Chatty, index this for me.
Please.
Okay. So the reason we're doing this episode today is it's become a tradition that every time I come to Nova Scotia, we record an episode, either a top 10, a top 5, Paul's least favorite UFO researchers.
Don't think I've changed those 5 since.
Favorite 3 UFO researchers. I don't think you have. Yeah, we've done, I think your top 5 favorite UFO cases.
Yep.
I think we did as
Yep.
well.
Can't remember what they were.
Yeah.
Probably would give you a different list now, but there might be some similarities.
Yeah. So if you guys haven't heard those episodes or watched, go back in the archives. You can find them all. Just type in Paul Kimball. He's been on 4 or 5 episodes at this point, not including Esotericon. We did a live one of that. That was fun.
Nobody
Interesting.
nobody will ever. You didn't air that, did you? I thought you guys. I wasn't even on it. I was in the living room cringing.
I aired the parts that could be aired.
Where the feuds hadn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It got heated.
Anyone who knows me knows you can't shut me up, and anywhere there's a camera or a mic, I'm there. And even I dipped out of that one.
Yeah.
Like I just went to the living room, went, nope, having a beer.
Greg Bishop refused to even air any of
Don't
it.
blame
Yeah.
him. In fact, I think the only 2 shows Greg ever did of his podcast that he refuses to air are that one. And he did air this one once live when I was in studio in LA. It was the ufological death match, wrestling death match thing, where at the end, I think it was Stephen Greer fighting reality because Greer had killed everybody else. And I believe Greer beat reality. But anyway, we made fun of so many ufologists within there, like Don Ecker and stuff, that Greg said, I'm never putting that up on my thing again. So
Don Ecker. I wonder what he's up to nowadays.
about 81 years old, maybe. I don't know how old Don is, but
That's what he's doing 80.
yeah,
right
he
now.
must be getting up there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the Anomicon. I've been on the Anomicon
Correct.
every year, maybe, except this year I haven't been invited.
I'll get you in somehow.
No, that's fine.
We'll get you in.
I'll be in France.
Yeah.
Or
Oh, that's right.
no, I won't. When are you doing the Anomicon? Plug it.
September 12th will be a Nomicon, guys.
No, I'll be here, but then I'll be on my way to Scotland with the Haunted Heart and Soul team,
Yes.
which I'm returning to the Haunted Universe only to direct and write. And because it's a television show, and television is very similar to how I began my career making documentaries. Look at that. I'm helping you out here.
Pay attention.
So it's almost as if you wanted me on so I could talk about my documentaries. Is
Yes.
that what the subject was?
So I thought it would be cool. I'm currently, guys, I'm writing.
He's new at this.
You would think, yeah. I'm currently finishing up my next book, which will hopefully be out at the beginning of 2027. I will have more news on that soon. But I am writing an entire chapter on this man right here and my ghostly and UFO exploits with you.
I have gotten so old. I have reached the age where people are now writing about me.
Yeah.
as, like, an elder statesman, which
We got to do it before
While
you
we-
go, Paul.
whoa, darkness falls.
I went there.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's probably coming sooner rather than later. So
Stop. No. We but we've had some incredible conversations on the road and on these podcasts and stuff. But I've been doing a lot of digging into your filmography, whether it's UFO related, whether it's your feature films and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And in my new book, I'm going to be tackling a lot of your UFO documentaries. So I thought this would be a cool opportunity to go down memory lane with literally every single UFO.
before I
Documentary.
lose my memory.
Yeah,
So yeah.
Yeah. We're all getting there. We're
yeah,
all getting
yeah.
there.
Runs in my family. So this hat is really anyway, continue on. This is what I get when I buy a hat in the United States. There.
Yeah,
Nope, that doesn't work.
only the best
Store.
quality.
Actually,
Yeah.
I love this hat.
That's
And,
cool. What
free,
is it?
Free copy of Ryan's book if you know what this hat is.
Yeah.
I not really. It's the Nashville Sounds. It's the single A baseball team in Nashville.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I caught like 3 games there when I was down a few years ago.
Oh, wow. Super obscure. If any of you actually guessed that, please let me know before he said it, because I will send you a book.
Yeah, you wouldn't normally associate Nashville with minor league baseball,
No.
but they have a really nice stadium and a really cool team. And I can't remember what they're an affiliate of, like which major league team, but one of them.
Ours used to be the Syracuse Chiefs, but they
Yeah.
obviously had to change that for politically correct reasons. And
Now
now they're the
The Syracuse Spragues.
I wish.
Yeah, there you go.
I wish. What are they now? They went from Syracuse Chiefs to the Syracuse Sky Chiefs, which didn't make things any better.
No,
And now they're the Syracuse Mets.
yeah, that definitely doesn't make anything better.
It does
Thing.
not.
Yeah, go back to Chiefs.
Go
And
back
I
to
don't even
Chiefs.
think like you should get rid of Chiefs, but Mets out.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Oh, man.
It's like my old high school was Prince Andrew High School.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway, so they renamed the high school. I still call it Prince Andrew High School. We all do, those of us that went there. And they had a naming contest, sort of, and they had like 4 or 5 different options. And the one they went with was Woodlawn High School, the dullest, boring name you could come up with. It's the neighborhood that it's in. But many of the kids don't live in Woodlawn like I did. And I grew up in a neighborhood called Port Wallace, so I don't want to go to Woodlawn High School. Fuck. But Dartmouth, which is the city I grew up in, it's called the City of Lakes because I think there's 22 lakes in Dartmouth. So one of the options was City of the Lakes or City of Lakes. I can't remember which it was, high school. And that is the one I by far preferred, and I voted for that one. And they didn't pick it. And it's just like Woodlawn High School, boring. So when they rename, rightly so, some of these sporting teams to get rid of their somewhat racist connotations, sometimes they hit. I think Cleveland Guardians is okay.
Yeah.
You know, Washington Commanders, not so much, but anything's better than Redskins, so fine.
Yeah.
But in Canada, we have the Canadian Football League, and my favorite team growing up as a kid still is, were the Edmonton Eskimos. And so on their helmet, they have EE. That was their thing. So I was an Eskimos fan. And they finally got around a few years ago to going, let's ditch Eskimos. And so, cool. What did they name themselves? The Edmonton Elks. Like, I don't know how many elks there are to be fair, I don't know how many, anything that would start with the elephants or whatever, but elks. That's all. Like, so we're on a tangent, folks, but I don't want to talk about my film. So Eskimos, 3 syllables. Find something that starts with E that has 3 syllables, because then stupid people like me can just transpose Eskimos to what has 3 syllables. Elephants. There you go. Not elephants, but at least Edmonton Eskimos to Edmonton Elephants. Sounds the same. Edmonton Elks. It just sounds like there's 2 syllables missing off the end of it.
Yeah. You want to keep going with it.
So I now call them, because they haven't won in years, Edmonton Shitty Elks, because they haven't. I think they're having a winning season this year, and they're one of the great franchises in CFL. But as soon as they changed their name, it was like they were cursed. They just started losing, and it's not because they changed their name; it's because they changed their name to Elks, which
I don't like it.
Yeah. Edmonton Elks. I mean, actually, if you've ever met an elk, they're really big and they can be quite frightening and scary.
Yes, I have met an elk.
So, yes, right. Late at that bar in Shelburne.
Yeah. That night did not end well.
No.
Nor the morning.
Never mind. Let's talk about my films.
Okay.
This is going to go down a rabbit hole of bad taste jokes.
We're just going to keep joking, guys.
We keep that for the car.
That's true.
We save that for the car.
That's true. That's between you, me, and Mosley.
And Mosley, who's not here tonight. He's upstairs. Okay, so you wanted to talk about my films.
I did, but I wanted to promote Cove Soda, my favorite new drink here, local drink.
This is made in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, where I grew up, where the City of Lakes High School should be, but it's Woodlawn High. And they make all sorts of super duper flavors. Root beer. They have something called Dr. Cove, which is like Dr. Pepper, but it's Dr. Cove. And they have Cove Cola and orange cream and whatever.
This one's ice pop. So
what's it taste like? I've never had it and I don't want it because it frightens me.
For our US listeners, the ice pops, the red, white, and blue ice pops were huge growing up.
Oh yeah, no, same here.
Were
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
Okay.
We used to eat those.
Yep.
And then we'd go
The rocket pops.
Yeah,
right?
we'd go Death to America and then eat it one color at a time. It was like eating your flag.
Oh my God. All right. So there's alienating our audience part 2.
Yeah.
But this tastes like an ice pop.
Oh, okay.
It's bringing back so many memories of like growing up and going to this convenience store I'd go to called Maloney's. I'd get an ice pop, I'd get a piece of pizza, and go behind the shop there and hang out with my friends. And so I love it. And it's no calories either. So if you guys are ever in Nova Scotia, check out Cove Soda. I'm trying to get sponsorship here, Paul.
Fair enough. If I wasn't so lazy, I'd go behind and pull up Miller's gourmet popcorn, which we eat like it's crack.
It is literally.
I call it crack popcorn because you just and it's the salty.
Oh,
Let's pretend we're food influencers. You just notes. First of all, you have to do the eye roll. Oh my god. Then you do this. You do a brief pause. I watch a lot of food influencers and you just go. It's when the salt hits the tanginess and they meld together with the tangy saltiness that you get the salt tang. I hate food influencers. I like genuine chefs, and I follow some on Instagram that give you like, here's how you make pasta, but they're generally usually people from Italy or from wherever. Cool, love those guys. Some dude who just walks into a pizza place and goes, oh my god, I just need a moment. Having a religious experience meets an orgasm here, and it's all because of this cannoli. And this is the greatest cannoli ever, which they say in every episode.
Of course, everywhere has the best cannoli.
Last word I'll say on food. My favorite, I don't know if it's my favorite, but one of my favorite Instagram accounts. So here's a sponsorship opportunity for you. Follow up on this is Talercio's, which is a sandwich shop, restaurant, whatever, in New Jersey, of all places. And I have never had an overwhelming desire to go to New Jersey. Nothing against New Jersey. And I won't travel to the US while Trump's president. But as soon as he's gone, I will go back to the US as long as it's not JD Vance or some other fascist. And as soon as America is free again, I am going to New Jersey, to Talercio's, to have, and you can follow them on Instagram, what have to be, they're the biggest sandwiches ever made.
Yeah.
Clearly. The guy they have do them is quite amusing and stuff. But oh my God, it's a heart attack waiting to happen. But in a good way. Like they're this long, and he's just like, first you flip it, then you lit it, and you slice it, and they slice their mozzarella. They don't grate, and he's oh my God, look up Talercio's. Brian will stick a thing up at the end. You can go to their Instagram page and look
follow them
because I told him to follow them, and it's like those sandwiches are.
Yeah.
Right.
It would be a pilgrimage to New Jersey just for that.
Yeah, it would be like, going to Mecca, but for sandwiches.
Yes. Yeah. Two of my closest friends live in New Jersey, and I will not go there. But if you told me we were going to
Talercio's,
a sandwich shop, I would definitely do.
Yeah, I don't even know where in New Jersey it is.
Yeah.
But I'm going to find out. And I'm coming. Sorry. I'm coming for you, Talercio's.
We're coming.
I had my first Jersey mics 2 weeks ago. So now I can graduate to Talercio's.
Yes, you definitely need to graduate.
And if you're still listening, folks, we're 16 minutes in, and wowee.
Oh my God, you guys are true ride or dies, as they call them.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. But good advice on Talercio's,
for sure.
Like if you're there, that's a good follow on Instagram too.
Exactly.
If you like sandwiches.
We've already promoted Talercio's,
Cove Soda, Brief mention to Miller's Gourmet Popcorn.
Yeah,
you'll be swimming in the money by Monday, buddy.
Oh yeah, get those Nova Scotia bucks, baby.
Not from Haunted. We can't. We won't be paying you for weeks. It's the exchange rate, Ryan. We're working on.
I get it.
So you want to talk about my films?
Yes. So we're going to go through. I mean, your filmography obviously transcends just UFOs, but for this show, we are just going to cover those. I think for this episode,
Spielberg, Christopher Nolan, me.
Exactly.
And not in that order, people. Not that order.
Oh, you know what?
Nolan's got a little work to do.
You have not seen Disclosure Day yet, right?
No, I have not.
Okay. Then we don't have to discuss that.
Is that a Corbell film? Sorry.
It should be. I literally have Paul's IMDb pulled up here, guys. So we're going to be going through, and
I don't even remember that one.
Yeah.
Wow. I think I was drunk when I shot that.
Probably. Soul Searching for the Blues. That was your first.
I was only the producer on that one.
Okay.
It's about a Nova Scotian jazz musician who goes down and hangs out with Bruce Katz, an American blues musician.
Oh, cool.
Hammond Organ guy. Really cool guy.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a guy named Will Fraser, an old friend of mine, did that film.
Okay.
It's a pretty good film, actually.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
you're just going to go straight through them?
Your whole thing.
Wait till we get to the Stephen Greer film.
Gosh. Is that even on here?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No, I never put that one on IMDb. That was just so I could get a funding bonus from the government of Nova Scotia.
Got it.
That's why I finished the film. And yes, I am a true filmmaker, folks. I will do anything. Wait till we get to Aztec 1948. I will do anything to make money or leverage opportunities. So
Spoken like a true filmmaker.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, 2002 was presumably your first UFO documentary, or would it have been the one you did with Nick, the Puerto Rico one?
Oh, that was later.
That was later.
That was also another one that I did.
Didn't.
to leverage opportunities. So
God.
there's an interesting story about that one, so we can get that.
Okay, we'll
Yeah,
get to that.
but yeah, the first one I ever
Let's
did was
start with
Stanton Friedman Is Real. That was the first film. That was the first film I ever directed, actually. Yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
So tell us a little about it.
I wasn't going to be the original director. A guy named Evangelo Cusis was a friend of mine, and I fired him. Not the it was the first time. It wasn't the last time. My reputation of Paul will crush anyone if it provides him with an opportunity. Well earned from the very beginning. No, actually, I sat down. It was about Uncle Stan, obviously. So I was producing it and I was writing it too, sort of. But Evangelo was going to direct, and I had never directed anything. I didn't go to film school or whatever. I was a lawyer. I'd come through government film agencies, and so I could produce. I knew how to leverage money and stuff. All right. So I sat down with Ralph Holt, who was the head of Telefilm Atlantic. Telefilm's the Canadian Federal Film Funding Agency. I knew Ralph from my days in provincial government funding agency. And they had money in Stanton Friedman Is Real. And in an hour, having coffee with Ralph, I basically gave him the whole film. Like, this is what the film's going to be. It didn't wind up that way, but I knew the story. And he said, hey, Evangelo's a good guy and everything, but why aren't you directing this? And I said, I didn't go to film school. Ralph, can I swear on your podcast? I always forget.
Absolutely.
Sure. I believe the exact quote was, you don't have to go to film school. Fucking monkeys can direct. They just have to be monkeys who know story. You know the story. It's not your story, but your uncle's story.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. And who are willing to listen to and hire good people who know the technical stuff. And then you can learn. And he didn't use this example, so I got rid of Evangelo. Evangelo's agreed, and Evangelo and I worked on other things afterwards. But Evangelo went, yeah, you should be directing this. Okay, apparently I was the only one who didn't know. Fine. But I kind of likened it when people ask me now, I sort of say, Paul McCartney. And I do love comparing myself to Macca. But McCartney, when he became a really good producer. He understood how to produce. He had wound up producing a lot of his own albums when he went solo. By the end, he was sort of almost a de facto co-producer with George Martin on something like Abbey Road. But he didn't start out that way when he was a 21-year-old, 22-year-old musician first in the studio. But unlike the other three, George, John, and Ringo, to different extents, he didn't get drugged out all the time. And he paid attention. He watched how the engineers mic'd things, drums, every little thing in the studio he paid attention to. And Brian Wilson in the Beach Boys, same way. And they made themselves into producers by watching and listening, offering suggestions, but then seeing how George Martin, in McCartney's case, would execute something.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I had a guy named Finley Muir as my director of photography, my old friend John Rosber as my location sound guy. And actually, coming from the music industry, I knew something about sound. Very little about camera other than watching it. I used to joke for years. I still kind of joke. I don't even know how to turn the camera on, which, because they're always changing cameras, is still kind of true. Depends on the camera. But if it's a really big, no, it's not my area of expertise.
Right.
But I became very good at lighting and at camera angles. And so my imagination, though, was always there. So the Friedman film, a couple of things. So it's kind of almost a filmmaking class, right? I'm not really talking about Stan here. But if you ever want to make films, folks, First thing, there's shots in that film, which you can see these all online, that I love, that I wasn't even in the room for.
Yeah.
That Finley said, hey, Paul, can I take Stan and go shoot 30 minutes of fun B-roll? And Finley would go film without me there. And I wouldn't see the footage until I got back in the edit suite and was editing it and taught myself how to edit too. And you realize, it's just story. Like, I wrote songs as a lawyer. You tell a story, sometimes true, sometimes not in court, whatever. But it's all storytelling. And filmmaking to me was just another way of telling stories. So the technical stuff was initially beyond me. Editing I took to pretty quick. And look, kids can edit stuff on their cell phones now. So editing, you can figure it out. And then, but 98% of people are bad editors. They're not great. You learn by watching other people who do good work. And I'd watch films. I was a film guy, like a buff, for many, many years. I learned how to make, record, and produce music by listening to music, not just going, I'm just going to make music the way I want to make it.
Right.
No, I'd listen to McCartney or the Smiths or Joy Division or whatever, and love it, but also kind of analyze it. So I did the same thing with films. I watched other people's documentaries. So Errol Morris is probably my favorite documentary maker after Jeremy Corbell. And sorry. And Morris, there's a film Errol Morris did called Mr. Death. Sorry, not Dr. Death. Mr. Death, the Fred Leuchter story. And it's about a Holocaust denier who was also the guy who was the electric chair. I think he was involved in electrocutions in the United States. So he's involved in the death industry somehow. And he became a Holocaust denier. And when Morris filmed the documentary, he had, sorry, I have to make sure I'm looking. He had, Leuchter would look straight into the camera. Now, you're not supposed to do that. It's kind of, you're supposed to look a little way so you can shoot from multiple angles and stuff. Look like you're not looking at the camera. Morris said, no, I want this guy to look straight there, straight in the camera, down the barrel. So the guy did. And you could really see his face. And I was struck by that. And I said, that's how I want to do documentaries when it's the subject. So Stan, if you look at the Stan Friedman film, Stan is looking right down the barrel, which I can't replicate here. I don't know where your camera is. But he literally was looking at the lens of the camera. Kevin Randall's in it, Carl Flock's in it, a couple other guys. Bruce Maccabee, I think, Don Ledger. They are looking slightly askew, which is the traditional way that everybody sort of tries to do it. Stan, I had, boom, right down the center of the barrel. Not because he was a liar or anything. It's just like, these guys are part of Stan's life, or part of the story, but they're peripheral. When Stan's talking to you, I just want Stan to talk to you, meaning the viewer.
Interesting.
And it was, no offense to Evangelo, who I haven't seen in many years, but he wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I don't think most documentary filmmakers would have done that. It wasn't the language at the time that certainly in Canada people were doing. And if I had known the language, I probably wouldn't have done it either, because I just didn't know any better. So I said, I'm going to do it. And I think it works great, because it really allowed Stan to be very, like, you see him.
Yeah.
You see him. The only other thing I'd mention about the Stan Friedman film, besides, I mean, I could tell all sorts of stories about me and Stan on the road, which were fun. I mean, I love my uncle. So, we had a great time. Contrary to opinions that emerged later, my uncle and I did not hate each other. We actually, had great fun together, even if we argued in public sometimes. Was the music. So the music has a very churchy feel. And I remember some people reviewed the film, UFO people, not real reviewers, and they thought I was making fun of them. That, like, this music, if you listen to it, it's very organy. And I commissioned a guy, the late Paul Cram, who was a local musician, to do it. And I said, I want it to feel like an evangelical church meeting, like a tent meeting. My grandfather used to run them, where you preach and you hear the organ or whatever. And they said, oh, you're making fun of us. I said, no, he's not. He's a UFO evangelist. That's literally what he is. And there's a moment in the film where Barry Downing, author of The Bible and Flying Saucers, good friend of Stan's, calls Stan at the MUFON symposium. He says, Stan Friedman is the flying saucer evangelist, or something like that. I mean, it's right in the film, folks. It's like from them. Yeah. Stan was not offended by it at all. He actually thought the music was kind of cool. He said, yeah, that's kind of what I do. I'm like an old preacher going from preaching the gospel of the flying saucers.
Right. And
so that was very much a conscious choice, but an editorial one, not to mock Stan, but to sort of give him his due. Because I had the greatest respect for evangelists, in not the American ones today, but the old ones, and even the American ones today with the mega churches and the 10,000 people and the 8 jets and 4 mistresses or whatever. Well, I can respect that too. I can respect the graft and the grift.
Respect the game.
Hate the player, not the game. So yeah, those were, and so it's probably. Thinking of the UFO films or UFO related films, because it's not really about UFOs, it's about Stan. It is by far my favorite film, and it is still my favorite documentary. I did another one on Denise Jokic, a Canadian classical musician, a couple of years later. I like that one too, but they are my 2 favorite films, and there's a reason why. They're biographies. Denise was a compelling young cellist, and we were in northern British Columbia, which was weird to watch people doing concert recitals in, like community halls and gymnasiums. Yeah. It's not where you'd expect it. But she had played at the Grammys with Train. drops of Jupiter or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. So, and she had a $6 million Stradivarius in the trunk of the car driving through northern BC. Kind of cool. So yeah, but Stan is a better film, and everything. It's not hubris. I usually find the flaws in my film. I don't see any flaws in the Friedman film.
No,
I actually think that's the best portrait, not just of Stan, of any UFO researcher ever filmed. And I include, although he's not really a UFO researcher, I include Jeremy Corbell's film about Bob Lazar, because shitty film, and a shitty filmmaker. But Jeremy's like, that's not a film that's a film trying to sell you something. That Lazar is real and the stories are true. And Jeremy Corbell isn't a documentary filmmaker. I am. My job wasn't to sell you that UFOs are real or flying saucers are real. My job was to tell Stan Friedman's story. He believes they're real. And I really got into the UFO subculture because of doing this film and subsequent films. But my job was not to convince people the UFOs were real. My job was to tell Stan's story and provide counterpoints. So Carl Flock and Kevin Randall are in there to say, hey, we're not just going to agree with everything Stan says. Here's the flip side of it. Roswell could be toxic. Carl in particular. Here's the problems with the Roswell story. Kevin, poked at Stan too. From a place of love and respect. They both liked and respected Stan, mostly. Certainly, towards the end of all of their, well, Kevin's still alive, but Carl, these were people who could disagree with somebody without it becoming overtly, like terribly personal.
Right.
Randall and Stan fought a lot in public too, but they were congenial in private. And that's the thing about a lot of the ufology stuff. What seems like a big feud in public usually was not in private. However, when I talk about Jeremy Corbell, I do mean every word of it. So, hey, Jer Bear, come get me. Get in line. It's filmmakers, alleged filmmakers whose names start with J, all seem to hate.
Apparently, yeah. Got a theme there.
Won't talk about the other one. But yeah, no, I make no bones. Corbell is not a documentary filmmaker. Corbell doesn't mean he's a bad guy or whatever. That people can judge for themselves. But he's not making documentaries. He's making what I consider political kind of films, or he's a polemicist, or he's there to convince you of something. Yes, documentary filmmakers have a point of view, and occasionally mine would drift through in later films. But in the Friedman film, my job was to tell Stan's story and also to give the other side of view. And the thing I'm most proud of in my career is that nobody who's ever been in any of my films has ever complained about how they were treated, or they were misquoted or misrepresented. And if you're a documentary filmmaker, and they would often have radically different views than other people in the film.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a documentary filmmaker, there is no greater plaudit that you can give me. I have EBE awards and all that stuff. Who cares? Nice statues though. Never having somebody have complained that they were treated unfairly.
Yeah,
my job is done.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you even hear nowadays, especially with all these Netflix documentaries, of people like suing them and stuff for how they were misrepresented. You had the Linda Napolitano case, even.
I watched that.
We watched some of it together.
No offense to Peter. I really like Peter Robbins. I thought it was a good documentary series because they did what I just talked about doing. And I know something about the case too. So Peter, there were sides in that case. If you were on either side, maybe you felt like you were, hey, I thought this film was just about my side.
Yeah.
It's not what guys like me get paid to do. Guys like me get paid, real documentary filmmakers get paid to tell both sides of the story and let the audience make up their mind. So I understand that's a controversial case and controversial people involved. I looked at it just not even as a documentary filmmaker. I thought it was really well done. As just a person who was interested in UFOs, thought it was really well done. And just as trying to, I recommended to a couple of friends who were not UFO guys at all. And they watched it and they said, yeah, thought it was really well done. And they all came away with different points of view too. And that's the thing in that film's case that I think the Linda Cortiel or Napolitano side didn't understand was that just because people saw that didn't necessarily mean that they were going to immediately dismiss her. I think there was enough room in there for people to make up their mind either way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that you're right. There's two sides to every story for sure. And yeah, I do think you really played that well with your first UFO doc. And the thing I was watching it the other night and now knowing, you know, the I guess ironic yet sort of beautiful ending to Stanton's life
Mm.
of like
Oh, in the airport.
yeah,
Yeah.
coming home from a UFO conference, doing what he loved,
Mhm.
speaking in front of hundreds of thousands of people throughout the years and traveling the world and all that. Like, Stanton Friedman's voice as a UFO researcher. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that voice on my TV, on the radio,
Mhm.
having the incredible opportunity to interview him on the podcast for my 50th episode. Like, these are memories I will always have. And I love and, spoiler alert, the final moments of your film of him just kind of walking off down
Yeah.
a road in the desert, and it
Filmed it
seems
outside.
so appropriate.
Yeah, filmed it outside Roswell, like 20 minutes
That's
outside.
it. I was thinking it was maybe
Because there
yeah.
was like no traffic.
Yeah.
So we could get, I think 2 cars came.
Yeah.
And so we get off the road. Otherwise, it was just a straight stretch of road. And you could just shoot it.
And I guarantee you those 2 cars that went by were like, "Holy shit, that's Stanton Friedman."
Wow. Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's funny. Like, what did Stan and I talk about? Because we shared when we were in Roswell, we shared a hotel room,
Yeah.
which was fun.
It was fun. Yeah.
Because Stan would go to bed fairly early and I would go out drinking with the crew guys or whatever. And Roswell, it's a lovely town. If you were an alien, you wouldn't land there on purpose. It was July.
That's why I crashed.
Right, but they have all sorts of bugs. People are very nice. They have all sorts of bugs and big grasshoppers and stuff. And if you open your motel room door and you left it open for 5 seconds, you'd have 30 of those things in your room. So I came back and was like, hey, good night, guys. Open the door, got it open. And I was like 1,000, 2, 1,000, kind of like, okay. And it was dark. The lights were off. And Stan said, get in there and close the door. You're letting the grasshoppers in or whatever. I was like, oh, yes, sir.
You're letting the mantids in.
Yeah, exactly. And then I spent 10 minutes killing them.
Oh.
Because he said, just turn your light on. Trying to sleep. I can't sleep now. And I will always remember that because I didn't even really undress. I just plopped down on the bed. I wasn't hammered, but I had a few. I was like, Stan, what? What do you really think of Majestic 12? I don't want to talk about it, Paul.
Paul, it's 2 in the morning.
Pauses. And then we spent an hour talking
Really?
about baseball. Stan and I,
love
when we would hang out, rarely talked about UFOs.
Yeah.
Occasionally we talked about ufologists, but mostly it was anything but UFOs, baseball,
Wow.
religion, politics. He and I were more or less on the same side there. All sorts of stuff. But yeah, UFOs, that was his job. And it was also his life. He kind of lived UFOs.
Yeah.
But he had a broad range of interests too. So
See, and I love that. I love hearing that even someone of his stature who lived, breathed, slept UFOs had other interests, which is just like so important.
Mhm.
There's people nowadays, and there always has been in ufology, where this defines them.
Mhm.
Every moment from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to sleep, they're arguing on Twitter.
God, I
They're-
feel sorry for
oh,
those people.
God,
The
yeah.
world is such an amazing place with so many wonders, and we only have so many years in it.
Yeah.
Why would you waste, your time
Yeah.
arguing
And-
about that all the time? Occasionally, sure,
Yeah.
but
This is coming from a UFO podcaster, guys. Like,
mhm.
go do something else
Yeah.
with your life.
Florence is lovely.
Yeah.
Travel, eat food,
Yeah.
whatever. Just it's like Bill Shatner when he was on Saturday Night Live. Get a life. No. Until the aliens come down and prove that they're here and we know they're here for sure, or if they're aliens, whatever, we don't know.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting hobby, an interesting pastime.
Yeah.
I look at anyway, we don't want to go there. I look at the Disclosure Project and all these hearings and everything, and I can admire their passion, I guess. And it's better that they're directing it at UFOs as opposed to MAGA or something else. Fine. So there are worse things in the world. But a lot of you, not all of you, but a lot of you just got to get a life.
Get a life.
Yeah.
Myself included.
Or expand your life.
Yeah, That's
so-
a good way of putting it.
a person who is good at that, Suzanne, your podcast, Suzanne Landers, who I've met, very deep into UFOs and everything, but has a life,
Mhm.
travels, very well read and all that sort of stuff. I love Suzanne. I met her and her husband, and they're great.
Yeah.
That's cool. UFOs can be an interest, but don't let it
Absolutely.
define your very being. And Stan understood that too.
Yeah.
Because he had a family and he had a life, and he consulted on nuclear projects and stuff. He never stopped being a scientist, and, and he loved baseball.
Yeah, I love that. Well, we're not going to get off Stan too much because we're going to move to your MJ12 doc. But one more story, if you're willing to share, I'd love about the imagery just stays with me of the day of 9/11. You guys were filming during that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It
So
seemed like
we-
a very deeply human moment.
So we were in Cedar Rapids, me and Finley, Iowa, because that's where Kevin Randall lived. And I flew Carl. That hat it's killing me, folks. I flew Carl Flock up from New Mexico, so we filmed him in Iowa too. And it was actually a lot of fun. We had breakfast, Finley and I, at the across the road. I think it was at Denny's or something, with Kevin and Carl. And then we left to set stuff up. And here were these two intelligence guys, because Carl, CIA, and Kevin had military intelligence. As I'm walking away, going, I wish I could just stay and be a fly on the wall. I said, what do you think they're talking about? Like secret military plans? I said, no, they're probably talking about Stan and, other ufologists that they hate or whatever, or cases or something. And I'm pretty sure that's what they were talking about. Anyway, so I interviewed them, flew back to Halifax from Cedar Rapids on September 10th, 2001, and got in, I think it was around 11:30 at night. So it was 1:30 in the morning. We were on the last flight out of Boston. So I like to joke with people that the terrorists in Boston might have been in the airport and I might have walked right by them. And by joke, I don't mean joke, but just sort of, because the next morning they left on the first flight or one of the first flights out of Boston. So fun story, if you can, it's not really a fun story, but when in the old days, we used to film on beta tape, and they were like VHS tapes, basically, same size. And you would have to stuff all of those in a suitcase. So I would have two suitcases, my stuff, and then and if you were going to lose a suitcase, you lost your clothes. Like you would fight a grizzly bear to keep those tapes because that was your film. You're done.
Yeah.
Couldn't upload it to the cloud, kids. Didn't have it on your phone or like a thumbnail drive, or whatever. They were in a suitcase. So I had this suitcase, this carry-on size. And when we're going through Cedar Rapids to fly back, I never forget the lady. There was a lady. She's a nice lady working the X-ray thing, and security. Anyone who flies now, like is young. I work with a lot of young people. They do not remember. Some of them weren't even born pre 9/11.
Yeah.
Flying was different. Not if you were in Israel or maybe the United Kingdom during the Troubles, but flying in North America was different. It was different. 9/11 changed everything. And so I look at her and I go, listen, is it okay? Like, it's full of these tapes and I don't know what the X-ray machine will do, but I'm kind of worried. It's a television thing. And she's, oh, sweetie. And she picked it up. She didn't even open it and look. She just trusted me. And she took it around the X-ray machine and then stuck it, and down it went. She said, you're fine. You just walk through the thing. And so I thought the next day after kaboom, somebody's getting fired in Cedar Rapids because she's, people say, how could these guys sneak on with just box cutters and hijack a plane? Yeah, got news for you. It's a different world, folks. Security was not what you think it is or what it is now. Yeah. People were just letting me and my thought, even as I got on the plane was, you know what? I could be a terrorist, because at that point, the worst terrorists in American history were the white Anglo-Saxon looking dudes like me at Oklahoma City who blew up the federal building. Right. Didn't look like the guys from Saudi Arabia, looked like me. And she just let me put it on. So I wasn't a terrorist. There were real terrorists. Next day, kaboom. I get in a car with Finley and John Rosborough because we're going up to Fredericton. It's about a 5 hour drive. New Brunswick to film Stan. This is when we're going to film Stan. We filmed everyone else. Now we've got, I think, 4 days with Stan. Boom. And I drove down. I had to give something to my fiance at the time. And she was working at a company called Quick Law, and they're downtown Halifax. And we had a building in Halifax called the World Trade Center. It's like 6 stories tall. And I walk in and they're all looking at the one computer. This is how long ago this was, in their office at the front. And they're all staring at it. And I'm like, what happens? Plane just hit the World Trade Center. And I look out the window and because they're near it, I went, just drove by the World Trade Center. It's still fine. Oh,
Oh,
you mean that World Trade Center? Oh. So we quickly learned what it start, and we're leaving at like 9:30. So it's obviously a developing story, folks. By the time we get to Fredericton, the story is still a developing story, but the main, boom, 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 boom kind of thing. And Stan, there's a shot. Anyway, long story short, it was a very odd, just the world changed. Everything, it's like BC and AD. I can remember before Christ, after Christ, or whatever, you want to pick. There's turning points in history. That was a turning point, certainly for us in North America. And so there's a shot in the film where Stan is sitting there and we're shooting him from outside through the blinds of his house. And they're half, how blinds are. You can see through them. They're flipped this way as opposed to closed. And it's the part of the film where things shift from Stan's happy-go-lucky childhood and how he became a UFO lecturer and he's making jokes about SETI, silly effort to investigate, to now it gets darker, conspiracies, and Carl Flock comes in and all that sort of stuff. And the music changed a bit too. And so it looks and we do a shot like this, coming in slow, a slow zoom into Stan, and he's looking at something it's like we lit his face. What he's looking at is CNN coverage of 9/11. He is sitting in his living room as a guy who grew up in Linden, New Jersey, not all that far from New York, watching 9/11 coverage and wondering what the world will look like next morning. And so that look on his face, and me, I had a job to do. We were all shaken.
Yeah.
What does this mean? Are there more attacks coming? Is this war? Nobody knew. We know now. We can look back 25 years later and go, okay, here's how it all worked out.
Mhm.
But at the time, nobody knew. Were there more attacks coming? All the planes had been grounded. You couldn't fly anywhere in North America. You Americans who continually land-based Canada for not being your friend, we let all your planes land here and just sit up. We treated you guys, and we would do it again. But that's who we are. When the skies closed, because nobody knew. But Stan, he's just staring. Me, I just went, Finley. Actually, John, we didn't need sound, so it was just me and Finley. But I think John came out too because he just didn't want to be in the house. Let's go out and let's shoot through the window. Stan didn't even know we were shooting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just said, this looks great, and I'm sorry, and it's terrible, and this is a terrible day, and we'll figure it all out tomorrow. But right now, I got a job to do, and that's a great shot. And so that's what I did.
Yeah.
And then I told Stan afterwards, he said, yeah, I paraphrase. He said, yeah, that's what I would have done too.
That's good to know.
He
gave you the blessing.
Yeah. And then later he said, that was a great shot.
Yeah.
I look really serious. I said, yeah, you're watching 9/11 coverage, Stan.
Yeah.
That's when I was out in the backyard filming and you didn't know. And those are sometimes the best shots when you're filming people and they don't realize, because you get a real kind of reaction.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would continue in your films too.
I told that story to a young production coordinator we fired, and she said, "Listen, it's great. I was one," and I'm like, oh, "Okay, I feel old. I totally feel old. Really feel old.
Man,
it's hard to believe it's a quarter century ago."
I know.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah.
I'm
just glad I came back on September 10th. And you
Yeah.
you shouldn't joke about 9/11. But kind of, it's like after the space shuttle crashed, what does NASA stand for? Need another 7 astronauts. There's that gallows humor. You just, something terrible happened. You have to have a sense of humor about it. So I
Yeah.
look back on it now and go, it's a good thing we didn't book the flights for September 12th.
Yeah.
I would have been stuck in Cedar Rapids, Iowa for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Nice city for a day. Don't want to spend more than a day or two in Cedar Rapids.
Yeah.
No.
That's like that musical I worked at in New York, the Come From Away,
Mhm.
about Newfoundland, when they landed all the people over there. 'Cause
Oh,
they
yes,
grounded them.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Gander.
you had city folk over in this remote island in Canada that they never probably even knew existed, and now they were stuck there for like a month. What was it, 2-3 weeks?
Yeah, something like
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
We did our best to treat our Yankee cousins as best as we could.
Yeah, you
And it
guys
was-
did amazing.
Because it was a terrible thing. It was a terrible,
It
terrible
was
thing.
terrible. Yeah.
And then my brother-in-law went and served, I think, 2 or 3 tours in Afghanistan.
Oh wow. Yep. I had some friends too. Yep. Came back, changed forever.
And then you guys invaded Iraq.
Yeah.
We were all with you on Afghanistan, but Iraq, bridge too far. Okay, so next, what do you got?
Next, let's move to MJ12. Do you believe in magic? Was the original title.
Mhm. Yeah, they've changed the title on all my films, I think, the
Yeah.
distributors.
At some point.
Yeah.
So this one kind of continued the story of Stanton Friedman, but
Mhm.
something he was hyper focused on for a lot
Yes.
of his career. Connected to Roswell, obviously, but that was
It was
the
intended as a
MJ12.
sequel to the first film.
Okay.
And so the
Okay.
first film was about him and a bit about Roswell. Now it was about one aspect and a very controversial aspect of his career,
Mhm.
which was MJ12, which is, to me, Stan didn't ruin his career, but it's the rock that his little ship crashed on
Mhm.
and that he could never get away from.
So what is MJ12? I know a lot of our audience, our younger audience members might not even really know what it is. A lot of people think it's a group of people. A lot of people just
Mhm.
refer to the documents. Like, what are we dealing with when it comes to Majestic 12?
A hoax perpetrated by Bill Moore and Jamie Chandray on the UFO community. That's what you're dealing with.
Okay.
And that is the conclusion that Carl Flock and many others have come to, and that I've come to as well. But it was a series, it metastasized, a word I don't like using, but it metastasized out into a whole bunch of other stuff, like the Ryan Wood and other people, more and more documents just kept coming out. You go back to the original documents, which were the Eisenhower briefing document and the MJ12 memorandum. It's actually a very short group of papers. And it was allegedly this group in the after Roswell, 1940s and 50s, that was put together to basically cover up the UFO, the crash of the Roswell spacecraft, and potentially one other. And it included, military and scientific leaders, and Donald Menzel, the arch skeptic from that time period, the Phil Klass of his time, or whoever today's arch skeptic is. Third phase of Moon.
Mick West.
The Mick West of his time, sure.
Michael Shermer.
You know what? Michael Shermer would be a better one.
Okay.
The Michael Shermer of his time, fair. And or Neil deGrasse Tyson, because he was a legitimate scientist. He was a real significant scientist.
Yeah.
Menzel was, and yeah, that's what MJ12 was ultimately. Eventually, Kevin Randall, who did not believe MJ12 as existed the way Stan said it did, he thought the Eisenhower briefing, all this stuff was faked. But then Kevin came up with his own group called the Unholy 13. So it's like,
I love that.
which is kind of an inside joke because Stan had Majestic 12. Kevin had to have one other person in it. So it was the Unholy 13.
It's like that person on Price is Right who goes a
kind
dollar.
of $1. You're one UFO cover-up guy.
I hate those people.
Yeah. And there's no Unholy 13 either, or at least there's no proof of one. So it was and I have no doubt everything points to Bill Moore, Stan's old research partner, and Jamie Chandray, who was a bit of a shady filmmaker from the United States. And somehow Jamie got involved in the whole Moore Friedman axis. By the way, do I think Stan had any hand in faking it? No. Stan was the dupe. He was the one guy out of those three guys who didn't have a hand. Stan was as honest as the day was long. Not always the most discerning when it came to frauds, although with Bob Lazar, he was pretty good. But with MJ12, he had a massive blind spot. Why? Because MJ12 proved the existence of Roswell.
Right, which is what he
Which was
brought.
that was his kid, his baby.
Yeah.
He's the grandfather of Roswell.
Yeah.
So he just put the blinders on and kaboom. So again, my job was not to sell MJ12, and it was not to dismantle MJ12. I gave this Carl Flock's in it. I gave the skeptics their moment, but I largely told it straight. Stan certainly he had no complaints about the film. He was like, yep, I still believe in MJ12, and I told my story. Had no problems with Carl telling the alternate view. He just said, here's why Carl was wrong. Okay, fine. And then after the film came out, people were shocked. Some people back then were shocked when I became a very vocal critic of Majestic 12, not the film, but and that Stan and I, at some point, Stan put an addendum, a new part of his book on MJ12, and he went after me. And not personally, but he said, my nephew's very smart, but he's wrong on this. And I was just like, no, I'm right, Stan, you're wrong. You're definitely wrong on this one. But my job in making the film was not to be an advocate or a disadvocate, which is not a word, but I just created it for MJ12. It was to let these people tell their story. And I actually probably veered in the film more. I did veer more on Stan's side, and I did a couple of promo pieces afterwards, like in a cable channel up in Fredericton, his hometown, where I kind of took a pro MJ12, or certainly we need to look into this. This is interesting. I did not know about this. And then I quickly, within a year, said, okay, fine, I've done my bit to sell the film and, promote it and be fair. And now I was writing a UFO blog and stuff because I got into it. It's cool. I'm going to take MJ12 apart. Wasn't hard. And I was not the first guy. He's like, Paul solved MJ12. No, not really. I was just kind of repeating what other people said,
Right.
Probably sounding smarter doing it than many of them. But yeah, that's what MJ12 was. It was a hoax. Anyone who believes in MJ12, you're wrong. That does not mean that there isn't a group who has at some point or another covered up something about UFOs,
Right.
or that there are not secrets, or that whatever. It just means there wasn't a group called MJ12 at that time, structured like that, covering up a spacecraft crash in Roswell. That did not happen. But that doesn't mean that there are not other things that were not covered up about the UFO phenomenon. I don't know. So I refer to myself, I like to think that I get along with both Kevin and Stan, obviously, when he was alive. So I call myself MJ13. The Unholy 13 meets MJ12.
Oh,
That's me. I'm MJ13.
perfect hybrid baby.
It's true.
Last question on MJ12. Why do you think they hoaxed this? Like, I know a lot of people think this was was from in the government, like a disinformation campaign.
Two
Do you think
reasons.
there's anything to that?
If I'm being
No.
If I'm being generous, I would say they hoped, this would be the generous part. They hoped that if they put the fake stuff out there, it would shake out some real stuff.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Didn't work that way.
No, and all it did was shake out more fake stuff. I don't believe that either, too. I honestly believe that they were doing it because they wanted to cash in on Roswell.
I see.
Make more money off it, make more money off the crash plane. More had the Roswell incident, and it hadn't done as well as the Philadelphia bookie did with Berlitz.
Oh, that's right.
And this was like, there was an economic opportunity here for them. I know my dear friend Greg Bishop disagrees with me on this, I think, but that's fine. That's, at the end of the day, I don't know why they did it. I just am pretty 99.999% sure that they did do it. And to me, honestly, the reasons don't matter. What matters is the conclusion. It's a fraud. And it's not a particularly compelling one, frankly, when you really look into it.
Yeah.
There are better, it's better than your average Jaime Maussan promoted fraud.
Yeah.
So it's better than Jonathan Reed. I'll give him that. But it has a slight air of plausibility to it. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roswell slides. Anyways.
That one, anyone involved with that one, people know what my point of view is. You should never be allowed into ufology again. Credit to Stan, he stayed out. They asked him in and he said, yeah, I don't want to be part of this.
That's fair.
So
let's move to some credible UFO information. And that is with your 2007 film, Best Evidence Top 10 UFO.
I like how you
sightings.
skipped the Aztec film.
Wait, didn't that come later?
No, that was before.
Oh.
I did that. I shot that at the same time I shot the MJ12
Oh,
film.
interesting.
And I just did the Aztec film for money.
What?
Yeah, no, I make no
Hey,
bones about it.
You're being honest.
I had a funding gap in the MJ12 film, and Scott Ramsey and some investors in North Carolina were willing to kick in some money if while I was there, I'd also shoot this Aztec film for them. I went, okay, sure, because that will cover my funding gap, and I'll do it. Aztec, who's ever heard of Aztec? Fuck.
Let's go there. Let's do that one.
So I did that one straight. So again, I refer now to Aztec as ufology's Dracula. You stake it, and then 20 years later, some idiot comes in and takes the stake out the vampire. I was the idiot. I took the stake out and put life into the Aztec case, which is an absolute fraud. The whole thing is a hoax. And I don't want to get into it. You can go to my old blog, because as soon as I was done the film, I immediately, didn't take me as long as MJ12, because I like Sky, he's a nice guy, but he wasn't my uncle. So I immediately became an arch critic of, and I got blasted by guys like Alfred Lemberg, UFO commentators back then. That crowd back then, it was all on lists and stuff, blogs. And they said, Kimball's a fraud. He's denouncing his own films. Dudes, I get paid to make these films. I made them. I hope you like them. I think I did a pretty good job. The Aztec film was my best work because we had not a lot of money, but it's still a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And And Carflock's in it again because you need a skeptic. He's like, why is he putting the skeptics in? Now Kimball's denouncing his own work. He's part of the government cover-up. No, I got paid to do it.
Stupid.
I got paid to do a job. I did it. The information you wanted, everybody who was in the film, Scott and everybody else said, fairly treated, cool.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to tell you personally what I think about this in my capacity, not as a filmmaker, but as just a UFO researcher, ufologist, whatever. Two different things, folks.
Mhm.
Oh, there's two different things. And there's a lot of people then and now, not about me, because nobody knows who I am now, but back then they did, who didn't understand that. And it's not a field, I hate the term field, but it's not a field that is amenable then or now to what Greg Bishop calls the excluded middle. All the people in the middle who just go, I'm an agnostic. Here's some interesting stuff. I'm curious. Here's the reasons why that's not true and that's not true. Like I have a brain and it works and I'm not blinded by pure belief. Stan had a brain and it usually worked. But on MJ12, he was blinded. I told him to his face when he was alive more than once. Stan, you're being blinded by your belief.
Mhm.
And Stan, he understood the concept because he would say the same thing to Bob Lazar correctly, to Bob Lazar supporters.
Yeah.
But everybody has a blind spot. I'm sure I have one too. I don't know who she is, but no, I do. But my wife. But everybody has a blind spot. They can't see, and in all seriousness, I'm absolutely sure that I have too. It's just mine maybe aren't as public as Stan's was,
Yeah.
or as Jeremy Corbell's myriad blind spots are, or George Knapp's, or whatever. But everybody has them.
Absolutely.
So
Except me, I'm perfect.
usually he is. He's kind of perfect. Look how cute he is.
Stop. Oh, no. I have many.
This
friends.
lighting is very good for you.
Blinded by the light. That's all I was thinking about as you were saying. Okay.
My neighbors are coming over with pitchforks now.
Yeah.
No, they can't let Paul sing. He can't sing.
So Aztec was a 1948 crash, right?
It was a 1948 hoax.
Oh,
But yeah, it was allegedly happened in 1948.
Got it.
And it's actually watch, if you want the story, watch the film, because Scott Ramsey will give the side. He didn't hoax it, but he'll give the believer side. But the counter side is in there. To Ramsey's credit, he was a believer. He had a vested interest in it. His friends put money, including him. He put money into it. And he also let me do whatever I want. So even though radically disagreed with Scott, he never once tried to exercise any editorial control. He said, tell the story, including the counter story if you want. And so I did. And that is something else you don't see a whole lot of. So while Scott and I disagreed on everything to do with Aztec, I have tremendous respect for the fact that A, he gave me money, and B, he let me do what I wanted to do, and he lived with the results and never sent it back and said, I'm unhappy with this. We didn't get what we paid for, whatever.
Yeah.
You treated this fairly. We got our view. Carl and others were in there giving the counter view.
Mhm.
Cool. Scott got it. And I wish more people were like that. So even people I could disagree with, like Scott, understood what documentary filmmaking was, unlike, okay, I'll say it, Jeremy Corbell. So
I don't want to get sued.
no, go ahead, Corbell.
Yeah.
Sue me.
Come at me, bro.
I just think you're a shitty filmmaker. That is a constitutionally, even in Canada, protected opinion. So I'm not saying you're a crook. I'm just saying you're a shitty filmmaker.
Okay. It's been said, guys.
Yeah.
It's been said.
Now,
more than once.
Bob Lazar, on the other hand.
Oh, God.
So that's Ryan chiding me, saying it's been said more than once.
It's
Stop
been said.
picking on
Stop.
Corbell.
No. You can do whatever
Oh,
you
oh,
want.
wait, I think
Around
he's here.
somewhere in the skies.
I think he's here. Paul, why are you picking on? Oh, we've got Jeremy Corbell on the show. Why are you picking on me, Paul?
That's
Why?
Jeremy
Why?
Corbell, I can guarantee you, will not come back on Somewhere in the Skies. Not after my review of his Bob Lazar documentary and the book written by Bob Lazar. Yeah.
I thought you liked me, Ryan. I thought we were broskies. We got like tattoos and stuff. You know, I got tats, you got tats. What's going on here? All right. Fuck both of you.
Bye, Jeremy.
I'm gonna go hang out with Anna Paulina Luna. Is Nancy Mace still in Congress? She's kind of hot too. All right. Just that Tim Burchett guy, he's weird, but you know what? He'll do what I tell him to do. So anyway,
comment.
There he goes.
Bye.
Thanks, Jeremy, for showing up. Say hello to Anna Paulina Luna for me if you can find her. You won't find her in Congress.
No, you'll find her, I don't know.
Who knows?
In some evangelical church or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. We covered Aztec.
Why do you keep asking me on the show? I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm in trouble, man.
Paul. This is, I'm going to regret this. Hello, this is Ryan Sprague, the host of Somewhere in the Skies. If you're enjoying our podcast, our live streams, and our videos, and you'd like to support the show, there are several ways to help while unlocking exclusive perks. Join our Patreon community for early access to episodes, priority guest questions, exclusive articles, bonus content, and access to a growing community of fellow UFO enthusiasts. You can also subscribe to Somewhere in the Skies Premium on Apple Podcasts for ad-free listening, early access, and exclusive premium content. If you're watching on YouTube, consider becoming a channel member to unlock bonus content, members-only posts, badges, and so much more. No matter how you choose to support Somewhere in the Skies, your contribution directly helps fund our research, our production, travel, interviews, and the continued growth of everything we do here. So, to learn more, check the links in the show notes or the video description. And real talk here, guys, thank you for listening and supporting us for almost 10 years. And thank you for supporting independent content. And I hope you'll continue to join me somewhere in the skies. Okay, best evidence. Top 10
It'd be a lot
UFO
better if we had a
sightings.
Sassy's Pizza.
It would.
Top 10 UFO. Yeah, I've been criticized because I've basically trashed half the cases in that film since then.
Since then?
Yeah, because they've been debunked.
Yeah.
And fine. The whole point of doing the film, besides making money because it was a job, was to put what ufologists, and I surveyed or polled, I don't know, 40 ufologists, leading UFO researchers, Kevin, Carl Flock, Stan Friedman, Bruce Maccabee, Rob Swiatek, you name them back then, Dick Hall, they all provided lists. And 9 of the cases were picked by them. The 10th I picked myself, and it is the 1561 Nuremberg case, which I wanted to include something from not the 20th century, just to show that the UFO phenomenon, kind of a valet approach, had existed, whatever it was, throughout human history. So I went with that one. So I did exercise a little editorial control, and nobody really complained too much. But the other 9 were all picked. I had 1 vote. I voted myself, and but I just went with the numbers. Here's what the numbers say. So the RB-47 case was number 1. Which a lot of a lot of non-UFO super buffs were never aware of. And I remember after the film was released, like, I'm paraphrasing, but people were like, the fuck? Like, where the fuck is Roswell? Like, this is the dumbest documentary ever. Okay, first of all, unidentified flying objects. At best, Roswell is an unidentified not flying object anymore because it crashed. So Roswell's not there. By the way, some people did put Roswell on the list. Stan did. Weirdly enough, not at number 1.
What was his number 1?
I can't remember now, actually. I don't remember.
I know that.
And it was almost 20 years ago. So that list is on a computer somewhere, like 8 computers ago. But it was Roswell didn't make the list. Like, it wasn't even number 10. I think it was like 15. So if I'd had a top 20, Roswell would have been there. So UFO researchers at that time in 2006, 2007 did not consider Roswell one of the 10 best cases of all time.
Wow.
As a group in the aggregate. RB4. So let's see if I can remember. RB-47, number 2. Crap. What was number 2? I'll circle back to number 2.
Shag Harbor?
No, Shag Harbor is number 5.
Okay.
The Trent McMinnville photos was number 4. Number 3 was the Tehran, I believe, UFO sighting with the Iranian Air Force.
My favorite case.
During the Shah's days.
Yeah.
Number 2, I can't remember. Oh, Rendlesham 4.
Yeah.
Number 2 was Rendlesham. 7 was the 6 was the Malmstrom missile base case. I think that was 6. That was definitely one of them. 9 was the Yukon case. It was a Canadian case in the 1990s that flew over a bunch of places.
Huge craft.
Yeah. 8, I can't remember what 8 was. I mean, you can go watch the film.
Yeah.
So
We will link to all the films too, guys. I should make that clear. You'll be able to watch all of these documentaries.
like I don't consider Rendlesham a very good case. Larry Warren's testimony collapsing has not helped. But other things too. There's other cases. Malmstrom missile-based case, I think, has largely been debunked or has been debunked. Still love Shag Harbor. Shag Harbor is unexplained. Doesn't make it a space alien. It's just unexplained. Still love the RB-47 case, although some people like Tim Printy and Lance Moody have offered pretty good rejoinders against it, or at least well thought out, intelligent, made a good effort to reason. Like not just go, yeah, it's just this, or it's a civilian airliner. It's like Tim Printy in particular did that several years ago when I challenged him. I still didn't find his analysis compelling. I still consider it an unexplained case, but I give credit where credit's due. He gave it a go. What other cases were on the list that I actually like? I still like the Tehran case too. The Tehran case. No, O'Hare wasn't there. I think that's partly because recency bias, but an anti-recency bias.
Okay.
And I'm not a huge fan of the O'Hare case either. My question is always, you're in an airport. Didn't anybody take a picture of this?
Yeah,
like
you would think.
Even back then, people had phones that could take pictures.
Right.
And nobody's ever had a really good answer to me for that one. So
yeah.
The RB-47 case just has so many moving parts. It's a good case. Mm-hmm. It doesn't prove space aliens. But what makes the RB-47 case so much more interesting to me is not the RB-47 case, as good as it is. We interviewed a guy, he's passed away now, sadly, Lieutenant Colonel, or as you Americans would say, Lieutenant Colonel, that is the rest of the world would say Lieutenant Colonel, Bruce Bailey, who flew, well, he didn't fly. He was in, the RB-47 was an electronic warfare plane, countermeasures and crazy stuff. He didn't fly it. He was down in they called them crows, watching the wall in the north for you Game of Thrones fans. So he was in the guts of the plane working the ECM stuff. And he knew some of the guys in the RB-47 case from 1957, including Lewis Chase, because they were a relatively small knit community. And the RB-47, as Bailey, he literally wrote the book on it. He wrote a history of the RB-47 program, which I still have in my bookcase upstairs. And he described it, as did others, as secret, if not more secret than the U-2. Not the plane. The U-2, the plane itself was secret, but what it was doing. So he would say we would sometimes get shot at by fighter command flying over North America because they didn't know we were up there, because they didn't need to know. And so there could be, this could be a Soviet plane or something, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, thanks for the color there, Bruce. Great. Let's talk about the RB-47 case. He did. He talked about the crew. He knew them. He said, these are credible guys. Great. Done. Interviewed him at his home in Texas. Turned the camera off. And it was just me and Finley. And I said, hey, do you have a recommendation for a good steak restaurant? And
burning question.
He did. And he said, yeah, I knew those guys. I had my own case. And it's like, what now? Yeah. When I was flying in the RB-47, same shit happened to us.
Yeah.
Would you, I didn't know that. Would you, have you ever talked about that publicly? He said, no. Would you be willing to talk about it? He said, yeah. He didn't say fuck it, but because he was a gentleman, but basically, fuck it. What do I get to lose now?
Yeah.
Okay. Finley, do we still tape? Yeah, roll before he changes his mind. And so I interviewed him about his own case, which I don't think anybody had ever known about, or maybe his wife, I suppose. And he had been flying during the Cuban Missile Crisis down over Cuba. And the long and the short of it was, they ran into something that was a bit different than what happened to the RB-47 crew over the United States, but also very similar in many respects. And it knocked all their, in the 1957 case, they were getting pings back and stuff from the UFO, whatever it was. In his case, as he described it, it just fried their gear. Nothing. But the pilots, there was a visual sighting and everything, blah, blah, blah. Now and again, you can go on the film and hear Bruce talk about this himself. What interested me, and this is in the film, so for all you people who think out there that I am an arch debunker who doesn't believe in conspiracy theories and all that sort of stuff, generally true. But I asked Bailey, I said, well, what happened when you get back? And he said, well, we were debriefed. I don't think he said by AFOSI, but it was AFOSI, Air Force Office of, I think, Special Investigations. And then what happened? He said, we were told not to talk about it, not to tell our families about it, blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. Or said it was the fastest way, talking about UFOs was the fastest way to end a military career.
Yeah.
And you'd be shipped off to Alaska or something and never fly again, kind of blah, blah, blah. And I was like, huh. So here's a highly decorated, chest full of medals, lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force. I think he retired as a full bird colonel, who'd served his country and some pretty dangerous spots, flying along the Eastern Bloc. That's what these planes were for. And, I considered him a very credible guy. And it was the history of that. He wrote the history of that plane when he retired. And he's telling me, had my own incident, was told never to talk about it. And so I never talked about it. We just didn't talk about it. That we obeyed orders.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, there was a cover up. What it was doesn't make it a space alien. Could have been covering up all sorts of stuff, but they were told not to talk about it.
Wow.
And so yeah, that's so what makes the RB-47 case super interesting to me is not only that case, but the fact that I know that there was at least one other RB-47 case because one of the guys in that plane who knew these guys too,
Right.
told me about it. And it happened a couple of years after the 57 case. So
Crazy.
that's something I don't think Tim Printy actually addressed in his attempt to take down the 57 case. But yeah, the great case.
Yeah.
Still, to me, still a mystery. And that's the kind of case, unlike the vast majority of which can be easily explained, I think. That's the kind of case that still has me interested in UFOs, even though I'm not in ufology anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than critiquing on Twitter, a filmmaker's name's initials might be JC. KL. Is that it? Yeah, there he is. There he is. Hey, Jer Bear. Yeah. He's a nice guy.
He is.
Except for the part where he was disrespectful to Stan Friedman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you could replace
Travel
any-
back in time and do this episode over again.
Yes.
There would be far fewer Jeremy Corbell references.
for the two of you listening.
Hey, there were no James Fox references. Oh my God.
Not yet.
Just
Not
like,
yet.
No, won't talk about Jim Fox.
If you had to replace any of the cases in Best Evidence with maybe a more modern case or other cases, are there any you would switch out and put in there that you can think of off the
All
top
of
of your
them.
head? All of them.
I can tell you the ones I keep. Tehran, again, not without problems.
Yeah,
There's
of course.
issues with all these cases.
For sure.
RB-47, Tehran, I would keep Shag Harbor.
Mhm.
That's about it of those. There's probably another one that I'm missing
Yeah.
that I can't remember, but those would be the three that I still really kind of like. And no coincidence, those three were in the top 5
Okay.
or 6, 5 or 6. The rest of them, to me, they're not super great cases, or they've fallen apart like Malmstrom and maybe Rendlesham. Or they're problematic. Those three are still pretty solid.
Yeah.
Shag Harbor in particular, it would be my number 2. I still think RB-47 would be my number 1, but Shag, whatever it was, still unsolved. And it was labeled a UFO by the authorities. And 59 years later, and I know that because it happened in the same year I was born, and I'm 59. It's still a case that intrigues, and it's a case where I've had the opportunity to talk multiple times with the primary witness, Lori Wickens, Dickie Wickens, as they call him, and we've told that story. We walked over to Ryan and said, "Hey, what do you know?" It's like, I don't know, Lori. You're the witness. You tell us what you know. It's like, what do you hear?
Awesome.
Lori's a great guy, and it's fun. But the best UFO conference I've ever been to is probably the Shag Harbor UFO conference, because it's not big, and there's symposium, whatever they call it. And it's only one day, and you and I went again last year. Sadly, won't be able to go this year because we're out of country. But yeah, it's great fun, and Yarmouth's a lot of fun, and it's a really good story. And you can actually go to that conference and talk to Lori. In fact, not only can you talk to him, he will track you down.
He will come to you.
He will come to you. He will come to you and talk to you and take photos and stuff. And that's great.
I love it.
As opposed to Glenn Dennis in Roswell at the end, where, he was asking for money and stuff. Lori's not asking for money.
No.
If you buy him a drink, Lori's cool.
Oh, he'll gladly take a
He'll
drink.
take a drink.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
Who would?
But Lori he just wants to hang and tell the story and talk to folks. He's just a friendly Nova Scotian.
Yeah. And
Great.
he has no opinions on UFOs
No.
other than what crashed there. And
Something-
even that, he's
they
like,
saw something go in the water, and he said,
Yeah.
"I never said it was aliens."
yeah, they
Yeah.
thought it was a plane.
I don't think he thinks it was aliens even now.
Yeah.
But he says it's still a mystery, and we need to know what that is.
Yeah.
And I agree with him.
I agree with him too. Yeah. Any cases you'd put in there, you think?
Right. I've stopped paying attention to modern ufology
That's
because it's
fair.
full of me, but also people like Anna Polina Luna and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's I don't want to call it the tic tac stuff because I tic tac. But anytime you have pilots, who are they? What's her name?
Fravor,
Dietrich, Fravor, those folks.
There's another one too.
Any one of them I can discount, but you start lining a bunch of them up, it's like, okay, there could be something here.
Yeah.
Certainly something worth looking into. Would it make my top 10? You know what? It probably would, if for no other reason than it's just become so part of being in a top 10. Like if you ask me, what are the top 10 albums of the 1980s?
Mhm.
And if you say, Paul, you can do 2 lists, your favorites and the ones that you consider just the top 10 albums, sales, everything. Like Michael Jackson's Thriller, Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA, probably a Madonna album or 2, probably a Bon Jovi album. My personal list would have the Smiths and REM and early U2 and whatever. If I'm not sure the modern cases would make my personal list,
Mhm.
like I'd probably have the Hopkinsville Goblins on my
Oh,
personal
hell
list.
yeah.
But in terms of the importance to ufology
Mhm.
and the ability to capture the public's attention, RB-47 would not be on my list at all. Instead, Roswell would, and the modern stuff would absolutely be there. The difference between Roswell and the modern stuff is I just don't buy it. There's nothing in Roswell.
Mhm.
It is what they said it was. The modern stuff, there's a mystery there.
Mhm.
I think there's a genuine mystery, and it's in all seriousness, folks. I still care about UFOs as an interest enough that's why I'm so anti Jeremy Corbell and some of these people, because I think they ruin it. I think they muck it up. They're not doing any good. They're actually doing harm, especially when they link up with people like Anna Polina Lunatic and Tim Burchett and that crowd who even a lot of people in the Republican Party go, like, it's not worth it. And so I think they undermine their own cause by associating with that and running around in Congress and all this sort of stuff. That's not investigating. That's not documentary filmmaking. That's being an advocate, a proponent, a polemicist, whatever you want to call, propagandist. And that's fine, cool. I just don't think it's productive because I think it's much more productive to say, this is weird, this is curious. Weirdly enough, Neil deGrasse Tyson's full of himself, and it's tough. But even he will occasionally go, it could be a mystery.
Yeah.
Michio Kaku, much better. Michio Kaku would say, I don't know what it is, but it's mysterious.
NDT is actually opening up a little more too.
A little bit.
Yeah. I think it's probably because he came out with a UFO book.
Yeah, it might have something to do with the
Yeah.
dirty, filthy lucre too.
Yeah.
That's fine. I have, like, people would ask me we did that thing. Who do you miss most?
Mhm.
I mean, Stan, because he was my uncle. Carl Sagan. Like, weirdly enough, they both went to school together. And while they were friendly, they also did not share the same
Mhm.
view of UFOs. But Carl Sagan, like I knew him, Carl Sagan was not as close-minded as people believe he was. He certainly didn't believe, but I liked the way he thought too, that if you could show me proof, I think Sagan was amenable to changing his mind. I just don't think he ever saw proof, that the kind of proof he needed. I wish more people were like that. I'm not Sagan. I'm more, obviously not, because he's smarter than I am. But I want to see proof. But I like mysteries. So anything that is mysterious and interesting, it still interests me. Aztec, no. Roswell, no. But some of the older cases, yeah, because they're still unexplained. Shag, good example. 59 years later, still unexplained. Cool. Doesn't mean it was aliens, but it means it's still interesting to me. Why haven't they explained it?
Yeah.
RB-47 falls in the same category. Tehran, that kind of stuff. So a modern case, I'm just not up other than the Tic Tac stuff with those pilots, as just a general.
I mean, they're really
Plus anything on third phase of Moon. That stuff is gold.
totally.
The truth is in there.
The alien that was in the Vegas backyard
Yes.
that didn't make your top 10.
You know, if you want to find out where the truth is, you should watch Chasing UFOs, especially the Stan Romanek episode. That is some top-notch investigative reporting. I feel bad for him every time I come on the show. I ruin him. Like he loses subscribers.
It's fine. I lose subscribers for other reasons.
I
too.
subscribe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I subscribe to your wrestling podcast too.
Where'd that go?
Somewhere in the ring. Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding,
It
ding.
was good. You should have kept doing it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because the rest of the wrestling podcasts in the world are shitty.
They're pretty bad.
But yours was actually fun.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We will be watching SmackDown in a little bit.
Yes, that's true. We're going to go watch SmackDown with Jeremy.
Isn't it hilarious? I'm like, yeah, Paul, we'll do 45 minutes, an hour 26.
I told you I'm long-winded, man.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Actually, I don't have to tell you that anymore. You know.
Yeah, I know. This always happens on a UFO show.
Mhm.
Should we do Fields of Fear next, or should we do
Jeez, we skipped,
Blood Island?
We skipped an entire documentary.
We did. You want to go to Puerto Rico, or do you want to go to Alberta, Canada?
Oh, that is a tough choice because I don't want to go to either.
Yeah.
Puerto Rico. Nick Redfern got sick in Puerto Rico with Mondays.
What was it called again? Blood Island or Island of Blood?
Island of Blood.
Island of Blood.
Well, fun story. Okay, so insider baseball. We went to Puerto Rico. I was doing a documentary called Fields of Fear for Canadian television about Fern Belzo, the late Fern Belzo, who's passed away. And he was a cattle rancher out in northern Alberta, St. Paul, Alberta, where they had the UFO landing pad.
Mhm.
And he had become sort of an amateur cattle mutilation investigator. He was in his 70s at the time, I think. And he looked like he was
Amateur.
9,000.
Wow.
But he was a rancher.
Good
He
for him.
knew cows and everything. He became fascinated by this cattle mutilation thing. And he didn't say animal mutilation. He said cattle, because he knew cattle. And I think he probably been roped into it or got into it because there were one or two cases in northern Alberta or something like that. Watch the film and you can hear his story. It's been so long, I can't remember how he got roped into it. And what I wanted to do is the only time I ever had a network tell me, and it was after the fact, no. Because they usually just let me do what I wanted, which was great. And so I said, well, I want to do a cross-cultural or whatever. I want to show that it's not just like a North American phenomenon, that it's not just in Alberta. It's because Alberta's full of crazy people. Sorry, you want to separate from Canada, you're all crazy. Anyone who wants to separate from Canada, you're crazy.
It's like Florida
The rest of you are great.
or Texas.
Yeah. Or Quebec in the old days for us in Canada, and maybe the future days. But so I wanted to go to Puerto Rico and do the Chupacabra. Now, the Chupacabra is not cattle mutilation, but it is kind of animal mutilations. It mutilates animals.
Goat suckers.
Yeah, let's see if there's similarities. So we went, I think we were there for 7 days, and I took Nick Redfern down with me as the expert. And we got a guy, Orlando Pla, lovely fellow, who was the local guide, spoke the lingo because none of us spoke Spanish. And yeah, it was great fun. We went up to El Yunque and all. We were in a field somewhere in Puerto Rico, in rural Puerto Rico, where they'd raised chickens down a little road or something, like pigs too, and some had been killed by the Chupacabra, and they'd seen flying things. And we went to a police station in southern Puerto Rico in Mayaguez and talked to a lieutenant, whatever, who had investigated Chupacabras in an official capacity. And so blah, 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 did all that. And came back and cut the film, and it was like both. Sent it up to space, and they sent it back, and they said, ditch the Puerto Rico stuff. We just wanted the Canadian stuff. And I'm like, okay. Fern's the least interesting part of his own documentary. It's an interesting story, and he's in it. It's kind of like a Stan Friedman profile thing. It's interesting, but there's not a lot. Like, the Puerto Rico stuff is actually more interesting. And they said, yeah, no, just take that out. I don't know whether they were right or wrong. So I took it out, I re-edited. There's the Fern. You can watch the Fern Belzo documentary. What I did was afterwards, I still had all this Puerto Rican footage. So I cut it into a film, quotation marks, called Island of Blood. And because they had a rule in Nova Scotia back then that to get a bonus on the tax credit, which we used to fund the films, you would get like a 5% bonus if you'd filmed 3 films in 2 years, I think.
Mhm.
And I had a new film coming up, or I would think it was Eternal Kiss, my feature film, whatever, that I never talked about, and because it was terrible. And then I spent 4 years drinking afterwards. So yeah, it's a different story. I have failed, folks. I have failed miserably.
We all have.
Yeah, no, not quite like that, Ryan. I destroyed my entire company and almost my career. But to get the bonus, I cut together the Puerto Rico footage into a film called Island of Blood.
I love that.
And I was so not lazy. It's like, I'm just doing this to get the 5%, period. A qualifying film. I'll stick it up on YouTube. The government's stupid. They'll buy it. And they did. It worked. I did it with Stephen Greer too. I made a film out of an interview I did with Stephen Greer.
Right.
I don't think I put that one up, or I did and I took it down. Stephen Greer, The Disclosure Imperative. And I made a film allowing Stephen Greer full reign without any editorial, like Paul's popping in and going, this is all bullshit. None of that. Just boop, off you go, Steve. Because it was an interview I conducted with him in 2001 that didn't make the Friedman film. Did that to get the extra 5% too. So
You know what you're doing.
I know what I'm doing, and I'm also, I totally will prostitute myself for 5% on a funding bonus or whatever. But the Island of Blood, unlike the Greer film, which was pure grift, the Island of Blood, the difference between me and a grifter, I will admit to it. Like I'm telling you now I did this just so I could get an advantage in funding. Haven't done it since. Honest. Well, the Island of Blood actually took the footage that Space had rejected, and I wanted to cobble it together. And but I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time translating the Spanish, because what would happen is, you're Nick, I'm the Spanish guy in Puerto Rico, and Orlando would translate between the two. So I'd be like, so wait, you're Nick. You'd be like,
so tell me what's going on with the Chupacabra.
okay, that's kind of like what Nick would say. And then, folks, if you're Spanish and you're watching this, I apologize. Blah, 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 blah. Lionel Messi, goal, we cheat. Sorry, that's a dig at the Argentina football team, because they cheat. They're cheaters, dirty cheaters. Go England. Go anyone but Argentina. I would cheer for the United States over Argentina.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, I know. I didn't want to translate that or pay somebody to translate it, so I left the interpreter in. So what you would get would be Nick going blah blah blah, and then you would have like Orlando just standing there, and the Spanish guy, the local guy, would blah 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 blah, and then you'd hear Orlando go, what he said was blah 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 in English to Nick, and Nick would be like, so Nick's heard it twice. He's like, right, next question. I just couldn't be bothered. And it's probably the purest film I've ever made.
That's the raw footage.
Because there's some raw footage, folks. And there's some funny footage of me and Nick goofing around Nelly Yoke with a little Chupacabra doll and stuff. So it had kind of tongue in cheek, but it did talk, like there were cases. The farmer who had his animals mutilated, the lieutenant, I believe, who had investigated it, somebody else, some old guy in a park somewhere. It's so long ago. He's in there too, talking about it. So, and Orlando knew a lot about Chupacabras. So we actually interviewed a scientist too, and he didn't make the film. For some reason, I couldn't find the footage, but he was pretty good as well. He's a biologist in Puerto Rico, and he didn't completely rule it out. He didn't think it was a space alien. He just said it could be some creature we're unaware of, or escaped monkeys from an American research facility. There were all sorts of theories.
I love that.
And yeah, Island of Blood. Is it still online?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. You can go watch that. I haven't watched it in years. It's my best work and my worst work all at the same time. But Puerto Rico was a blast. First day out there, I got robbed, had a gun pointed in my face in Old Town San Juan. John Rosborough and I went out drinking a lot in San Juan. And we took a cab back one night, and we had a 9 o'clock call time. And my brother, who we call Il Duce, or we did back then, because he's kind of like Benito, like the trains have to run on time kind of stuff. Like that's what he was there for, to be our production manager, make sure things. So Jim was like, be there at 9. And John, I remember sitting in the car at the cab, The cab driver was telling John, hey, again, terrible accent, folks, but hey, I know where a great party is. You guys want to keep partying? I know where to take you. And I'm like, I do, but I don't want to keep partying. John was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I got out of the car and John drove off in the cab. And I'm like, I hope I see him again.
Oh,
I don't know where he's
yeah.
some voodoo ceremony on the country or something, whatever. No, that would be Haiti, which he had actually, I think, filmed in. So, so I get up the next morning and I'm down there like, oh, I am hungover, but I'm not super hungover. Funk, roll out of bed, no shower, just throw clothes on, down the lobby. I'm there at like 5 to 9. My brother's there. Where's John? Because the rest of us are all there. I said, he's coming. He'll be right. 8:59, 52 comes around the corner. And I think he's still drunk. Like
you can smell him.
But John, who will never probably see this podcast, but John's a dear friend. John and I used to, we could hold our liquor and you wouldn't know. He's just carrying his sound gear and everything. Good to go. Went to the back of the van, the very last row. And it's like 2 minutes after we got on the highway. So sleeping in the back of the van. As soon as the van stops,
yeah.
Okay, boom pole. There you go. Who am I miking? Man was a consummate, and I mean this. I really do mean this. Consummate pro. From all you kids I work with now, the film industry was a lot different back then. We were a hard drinking bunch of hooligans,
but the work got done.
The work absolutely got done and done well. But we also had a lot of fun doing it too. And I just remember when we were in Mayaguez, Orlando, we're all hungry. It was like 108. It was 800,000 degrees or whatever. It was like baked, and it was wet heat too. It was terrible, humid and everything. And we go into this restaurant, kind of like a diner, and Orlando goes, whatever you do, don't there's things you can eat. That sandwich, that sandwich, that sandwich. Don't eat anything with a salad, like egg salad, tuna salad, whatever, because you'll get sick. Yeah, because it's like there's no air conditioning in here. This stuff is it's rotten as they're making it. And fine, Nick gets an egg salad sandwich.
Nick,
yeah, eats it, no problem. We drive all Mayaguez is down here. We were in San, so we drove up. The pig farmer guy was here in the middle of nowhere, and then we finally get home, back to the hotel in San Juan, really nice hotel, and Nick and I and John, I think, had a margarita or two in the hotel. We didn't go out that night, but we had a couple drinks. And towards the end of it, Nick was like, "Oh, I didn't know what it is. Oh, it's not, the drinks aren't sitting well with me at all." Okay, thanks. Good night.
Yeah.
Next morning, it's like, oh, Paul, it's like Montezuma's revenge. I spent all night on the toilet, literally shitting myself. I'm like, you got it all out, right? He's like, I think so. We'll see. And it's into the van. And he did, but he was like, I'm just gonna sit here. And he would say to my brother, stop driving over bumps and stuff. It was terrible.
Montezuma's revenge.
But on the first day, we're driving up to El Yunque, and this guy goes by us on a motorcycle, and Jim was driving, Orlando was the front. I was I think it was me and Finley were in the second row. Nick and I think it was Will Fraser was with us. Whoever our production coordinator was in the back. I'm pretty sure it was Will. And all he had was a t-shirt, no helmet or nothing. And his t-shirt flipped up because it's not tucked in.
Yeah.
And you can see in behind him, he's got a gun tucked in there, as if, whatever. And my brother goes, is that guy got a gun? And because he was a little angry, the guy cut us off.
Yeah.
And Orlando said, don't say anything. Don't worry. Just slow down a bit. Said, yeah, everybody here has guns. I went, oh, I said, that looks like a Glock. Orlando said, yeah, I think so. That's popular. And it's like, why did they have it? And he said, why do you think? It's like, I don't know. I'm from Canada. I don't know why anybody would have an unlicensed firearm stuck in the back of their shorts because he's wearing shorts on a motorcycle without a helmet. Yeah. This is foreign to my experience. It is the law in Canada that we wear helmets on motorcycles and that we don't have guns, et cetera, et cetera. So Puerto Rico is a very interesting place. I really enjoyed my time there despite being robbed. If you've never had a gun pointing directly in your face, folks, here's my piece of advice. Give them your wallet. Yeah. I did. But fortunately, it was only money. I didn't have any cards in it or anything. And it was like, cool, okay, thanks, bye. And then they just walked off. Good times. But yeah, we had a lot of fun in Puerto Rico. And so Island of Blood, I should watch that because it's terrible. But there's some good stories in there too. And I actually disagreed with the network. I thought it would have been a nice.
Yeah, companion piece.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the only film I did for that network after that was Best Evidence,
Mhm.
and then I never worked with them again.
Mm.
They just their commissioning editor left, and a new one came in, and I wasn't the golden boy anymore.
Yeah.
Well, somebody else became the golden boy.
There's always another golden boy.
Yeah, you learn a valuable lesson about film and television production that always have other irons in the fire,
Mhm.
because networks can change personnel, and when they change personnel, you could be out and somebody else could be in, or you could come in and somebody else is leaving.
Yep.
There's only so many slots. But it was actually probably good timing because I didn't have anything else to do. I had one other film I wanted to do on the paranormal subject, and that was Best Evidence, top 10 cryptozoology monsters or whatever you want to call them. And they thought about funding it and they didn't. And I took it to Discovery, and they were close and they didn't want to do it at the end either. And so I never did it. And then I wound up doing Ghost Cases for Eastlink, and got into ghost hunting, and I never looked back to UFOs after that.
Yeah.
Feature films and ghosts and whatever else we do.
Yeah. Ghost Cases would evolve into Haunted. That's the project I became a part of.
Mhm.
That's why I'm here right now filming the spin-off Haunted Heart and Soul,
Mhm.
which is going incredible. And it's been quite a journey. I think it's so interesting. We were talking about, I'm writing a chapter on you in my book and how your life went from like UFOs to ghosts. And my life has now kind of gone UFOs to ghosts. And we're kind of on these similar paths when it comes to the mysteries that we
True,
can't solve.
but for the same reasons. You got into it because somebody offered you a job, and the irony is it was me.
Yeah.
So the circle, the karmic wheel or whatever. And I was like, yeah, okay, now Ryan's my friend. It'd be fun to have him around, and we need another co-host. So let's bring Ryan in.
Yeah.
And then he became a ghost hunter, and a pretty damn good one too.
Thank you.
He's lasted longer than most people have on the show. Most people not named Paul, Holly, or Dylan.
Yeah.
Those three lasted.
No, it's, like I needed a job at the time and you were there for me. But I mean, I have come out of this being like, holy crap. Like, I think there's definitely something to a lot of this stuff. And I'm learning more and more every single investigation. And there's coincidences, and then there's something else. And that something else is just becoming more and more profound, I think, for me
Mhm.
in a lot of these things, especially when you get deeply connected to the history of a place, which I think is really cool. And
Your area of expertise, or the role that we gave you
Yeah.
in Heart and Soul, which you
yeah,
took to like a fish to water,
right.
because you do this.
Yeah.
So you're good at it. Holly used to do it on Haunted back in the day when we would do it, because I hated it. I'm good at it. I like talking to people. I just didn't want, I was lazy. I just didn't want to do it.
I get
And
it.
so she, it's like, Holly, you go talk to the witness. You go talk to the witness.
Yeah.
And she was pretty good at it. And then we just stopped doing it and became about us. And that was my mistake.
Yeah.
But the new show has course corrected that a bit by bringing that history back in, and the idea of making sure that you talk.
Mm.
Although I'm taking over in season 3, I'm back, baby. So, but the idea that, we want to talk to the people that have had those experiences, and then go see if we can have them or replicate it ourselves.
Yep.
Or you're a host yourselves, because
Mhm.
I'm never going to be on camera again. But
He says that now.
no,
He's
But-
sticking to that.
Holly is.
Yes.
So
Coming back.
one member of the triad. Dylan's going to be director of photography. I'm directing, and Holly's going to be returning as co-host and in season 3, and also co-director.
Love it.
Because around season 10, I think, I don't want to say I let her, but I offered her the opportunity to direct an episode or 2 per season, and she's actually pretty good. She didn't look at my face. She's actually pretty good. No, she's a pretty good director. And I think she just looked at what I did and then did everything different, and that turned her into a much better director.
What
probably
a
than I am.
teacher. I love that.
Yeah, don't do what I do. She's much more organized.
Hey,
Yeah.
I mean, you got 15 seasons out of Haunted. You got
16.
excuse me.
We did
16.
an extra season 4, like unfunded. We just, there was season 3. There was so much that went on. We gave Eastlink an extra
It's
season,
amazing.
or 26 episodes instead of 13, which constituted. an
You're
extra season.
getting up to like Ancient Aliens level season
Did
one.
16 seasons at 13. What's the math on that? 178.
I don't
That's
know.
like 208 episodes, I think.
That's incredible.
Of Haunted by the end. And now, and many of them after season 4, they were all hour longs. So, pretty significant.
Yeah.
And now Haunted Heart and Soul, you will have done 26 episodes by the end of this season. And we have seasons 3, 4, and 5 committed to. So that'll be an extra 39 episodes. So even Haunted Heart and Soul, even if it only goes to 5 seasons, we'll have 65 episodes. Put them together, it's 270 episodes, give or take. And I believe that makes us will make us one of the longest running shows in Canadian history.
Wow.
But certainly, I would bet your life on this. I bet Jeremy Corbell's life.
Okay.
The longest running, I think it's the longest run. It'll be the longest running paranormal related show in Canadian history.
Whoa.
And one of the longest running paranormal shows in world history. Ghost hunters have probably gone on.
That's a lot of ghosts.
Yeah, so take that, Zach Baggins.
Yeah. You hear that, Zach?
Actually, Ghost Adventures has been running for a long time too.
It has, but we don't talk about that.
So yeah, I mean, it's a fairy tale, right? Everybody makes money. Everybody does what they like doing. We all like being part of it, of the ghost thing. And it's interesting.
Yeah.
And we get to tell interesting stories too.
Absolutely. I feel to get paid to go across this beautiful place, Nova Scotia, and hunt for ghosts, it is a dream come true. So I have to thank you for that. And I've learned so much. I've been scared sometimes. I've had a lot of fun.
We created a bog squatch.
We literally manifested our own cryptid that they almost put into the cryptid museum. You remember that?
Yeah, I think they might be starting to use it in the tourist literature on Long Island up in
Lord.
northwestern Nova Scotia. The bog squatch of Briar Island.
Yeah, who would have thought it'd be so easy?
Hey, he came through to us on the Ouija board. Him and his 5 wives, or whatever it was. It's a bit of a player.
He was a Mormon. Yeah, or a player. Yeah.
Well, he just lost a few listeners in Utah.
Just a few more. Oh, yeah.
There goes the Utah audience.
Well, this has been awesome, Paul, going through your entire UFO filmography. We'll have to come back and do maybe some more of Ghost Cases Haunted.
Gonna have to put the Greer film up.
Yes. That'll be.
By the way, you'll notice that when we moved everything over,
Yeah.
I subtly moved myself more towards the center frame. And you've been
I look like a giant.
You've been pushed off more on your own show. I am the narcissist that people make me out to be, folks. I'm coming to real. I am center frame on his own show.
This has been somewhere in the skies.
With Ryan's
This shoulder.
whatever his name is. No, you don't care. It's terrible. It just worked out. Here, we should. No, which way are we going? That way.
That
way. It was so easy. That's all we had to do. And yet, hi
guys.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, I get hit by the laser light. Oh, wait. Where's it? It burns.
These are my favorite episodes. Just, we have kind of an idea of what we're going to talk about, and then, this happens. So I loved it. I hope you guys enjoyed.
Most of it was true.
Most of it.
Most of it was true.
2 lies become a truth. All the links to Paul's films will be in the show notes below, so be sure to check all those out. Leave comments below on what you thought of them. Your brutal, honest comments. I would love for Paul to see those.
I don't watch your show. No. Never read the comment. Okay. First rule of thumb being a filmmaker, never read the comments.
Don't do it.
Never. And I don't say that here. I probably will, folks, but yeah, you should never read the reviews.
Let's do a test.
Okay.
If you're still watching this,
wow,
or listening to this, in the comments on YouTube, put the code word Bog Squatch.
BOG Squatch.
Yeah.
SQUATCH.
If you have made it this far with us, in the comments below, put the word Bog Squatch. If you're on Spotify listening to this, in the comments, put Bog Squatch as well. If you're on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and review. Put Bog Squatch somewhere in your review. We will know you made it this long into this episode, and we will thank you kindly.
Yes.
Whatever this was.
Remember, I'm evil, but I also genuinely find UFOs and ghosts interesting. And while I like getting paid, I could have gotten paid to do a lot of other things. In fact, I did feature films, classical music. I've done a lot of stuff. I wouldn't say I'd do this stuff for free because I didn't, but it's as Ryan said, it's great to get paid to do something you love.
Yeah.
And Michael Stan had the same point of view. That's how he made his living, folks, as a ufologist, as a lecturer, as whatever. And, he would say, yeah, I get paid to do what I want to do. Like, that's a pretty good life to lead. if you can pull it off. So the alternative was practicing law for me, and no offense to my lawyer friends, but no, I'd be dead by now. I would have had 8 heart attacks as a lawyer.
It's for me, it's just a bonus. Like I would do all of it for free. But for me, I'm a bartender and a barista.
You're not a bartender and a barista.
I was.
I've seen you do that stuff. You're terrible at it.
What?
No, you're an actor. Like
That's true.
at the end of the day, and you're a playwright.
That's true. Yeah.
And you're actually a pretty good barista as far as playwrights go. Now, you're a published playwright.
That's true.
You shouldn't be ashamed of it anymore. You should say, I'm published. He's published, folks.
I'm a playwright.
And an author.
And an
author, playwright. You're not really an actor anymore because you don't act. But
No.
that's your training. So author, playwright, television host, media personality.
I love it.
You're not a barista.
Thank you.
You were a barista the same way I was a security guard once in a rock band, which I was. After law school, I played in a rock band, but I was a security guard to earn money.
Yeah.
That's you as a barista. I do not go around telling people, hey, Paul, what do you do? I'm a security guard.
Okay. Fine.
I'm trying to build you up.
I know, and I appreciate that.
Because I don't want you to be another Jason Mosier where I steal everything from you. I've already nudged you out of your own show.
That was genius.
I mean, I created the entire Joe Sirocco show and then put Joe in the show.
That's true.
It seems
Yeah.
cruel.
Only you could do that. I
Yeah,
love it.
that's true.
Awesome. Well,
Okay.
Paul, thank you so much for joining us today on Somewhere in the Skies, my friend.
Konnichiwa. Sorry. It's a joke between me and my friend. It's like, konnichiwa.
Arigato. Gozaimasu.
And as they would say at Black Tiger, thank you, bye.
Thank you.